Hi there. I'm gonna attempt to do something I've never done before, and that's create a little tutorial how to create a PHP function that you can run at the beginning of your web page to check that the user has the required access level. I'm going to be showing you how to use this on a website I've already mostly built. It's a restaurant management system website. It sort of combines the standard restaurant website with a point of sale system. You're able to also log in as an employee, create orders, pay for orders, anything else an employee would need to do at a restaurant. So you can take inventory, clock in and clock out, all that kind of stuff. So that's sort of the nature of this website. Now, as you can imagine, you don't want every employee to be able to do every action, right? So there's some things that you only want the store manager to be able to do. This script is going to make sure that the employee logged in has the required access level. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm hosting my site on Siteground, right? And I'm going to log into the website files with WinSCP because I use Siteground to make an FTP account. So this site is just a demo site I'm hosting on my company's website. Okay, so now we're going to go in here, and like I said, this is just a site that I'm hosting on my company site, so it's in my subdomains folder, right? So it's my restaurant website demo. Alright, so right here I've got all my pages, right? So some of these pages I don't want just any employee to access, okay? I want, basically we need to check the access level for some of these pages to make sure you have the required access level. So to do that, we're going to make a PHP function. So I go into PHP, go into my functions. Okay, so now we're going to create a new function, and I'm going to call it check employee. Oops, I didn't delete it yet. So that's the one I already made, but we're going to make a new one. Check employee access, two S's level. And you got to put in a character before you can save it. We're going to reopen it in Notepad++. Okay, so, oh, that was the wrong one. So we're opening that file we just made, check employee access level.php. Okay. So we're making a PHP file, maybe run at beginning of web page to check if the user has required access level, but it must be loaded on page after the session is started and MySQL connection established. So we're going to make our function. I'm just going to call it the same file name. Well, not PHP. Okay, so now we're checking the employee access level. Alright, so this assumes that you already have an employee account login system set up. So in another video I may show you how to do that, but for now we're just going to assume that you have a system where you can sign in and sign out into different employee accounts. So the way I have my system set up, okay, so we're on Siteground. Let me show you how you get there. So we go to PHP admin, and I open up PHP admin. So I've got this database right here for my website, and I have a table with my employee account information. Okay, so you've got their name, all kinds of information, but what we're concerned with is this column right here, the access level column. So in this access level, you can see you have a long string of seemingly random characters. This basically tells you what their access level is, right? So it's a code. Okay, so we've got their access level code saved here. Now, what does that code mean? I have another table. Okay, so we'll go to our other table here. So this is our employee position levels. Okay, so we have 3 positions. You have employee, you have a shift manager, and a store manager. And as you would expect, the employee is access level 1, shift manager access level 2, store manager access level 3. So for each of these positions, and just a quick side note, this will work for any sort of website where you have different users logging in with various access levels, right? So instead of employee, shift manager, store manager, it might be user, admin, super admin, right? Or and you could have however many levels you want. But just for the purposes of this video, we're looking at it in the context of a restaurant. So we just have these 3 access levels. The store manager has the most access. Okay, so for each access level, we have an associated access code. So when the employee account was created, it was given an access code, right? So if the employee account was just for a regular employee, they had this access code. If it was for a shift manager, this access code. Store manager had this access code. That is the access code that was put into this table. Again, over here we already looked at. Okay, so for the employee, they were given an access level code. That code comes from this table, right? So each level, employee, shift manager, store manager, has a password. Or sorry, we're not dealing with the password. We're just dealing with the access code. So now what we need to do is, at the beginning of our page, we want to run this function that is going to check the employee account info. So we're going to look at this access level code for the employee logged in, and then we're going to use it to say, okay, if they have this access code, what is their access level? We've got our function set up, so I want to pass 2 parameters, right? So like I said, it's after the MySQL connection, so I'm going to use that. That's our MySQL connection right here. And then we also want to pass the required access level. Okay, so that's going to say, this is a variable we pass to our function that says what level does the employee need to be to have access. Okay, and then we are going to create another variable here. So this is going to tell us whether or not we were given, or whether or not our employee was given access to the page. So it's going to start off at 0. If they get access, it's going to go to 1, but for now it's at 0. When the employee logs in, we create this session variable, right? So it was already created when they logged in. It's the access level, right? So first we need to just see, is this even set, right? Because if it's not set, then an employee is not logged in and they do not need access. Okay, so first we check if it's set, then we're going to say, okay, this access level right here, what did we set it to? We set it to the access code. Okay, so we're going to get that access code that was created when the employee logged in. Now what I want to do is I want to use the access code, right? I want to use the access code to get the access level. So we're going to get the employee access level, right? So we're going to use MySQL, and our query is going to look like this. So we're selecting, we're going to do the star just because we're going to get the whole row from what table. Remember, we had 2 tables. We're looking at the employee position levels table. I want to get the row where the access code, right, equals, what is it? What do I want it to equal? I know it's a string, so I need to put it in single quotes, and then I want it to equal that employee's access code. We need to pass the query, SQL query, to the server. So we're going to use our connection to query the server, and our query we just wrote. And then, so that's the result we get back from our query. We already know it's only going to be 1 row. So we need to fetch the rows, or in this case, just 1 row. Okay, so now we've got the row with our, what did we just do? We gave them the employee's access code, the access code of the employee logged in, and we got back the corresponding row in our table of access level information. So now we want to get specifically out of there, okay, we want to get the employee's access level, okay, because remember we had the access levels 1, 2, 3, so it's an integer. Okay, so it's in this row we returned, and the column name is access level. All right, so now we've got the employee access level. So we have the employee access level, we have the required access level, so we need to compare the two. We only want to give access if our employee access level is what? It needs to be greater or equal to the required access level. Okay, so if you have an access level of 1, you can't do something if the required access level is 2, right? You've got to be on the level or higher. Okay, so we're going to check that this is the case. And if it is the case, we're going to set our variable access granted equal to 1. So now, if they satisfied both of these conditions, 1 being that they're logged in as an employee basically, and 2 that they have the necessary access level, they're granted access. Okay, so now what if they do not have the necessary access level? So in that case, the access granted is still equal to 0. So what do we want to do? We want to boot them off of this page. We're going to boot them to another page. Okay, so how do we do that? We're just going to run a little JavaScript script. Okay, so I have a page that I set up to boot them to, and I'm going to set the feedback message they're going to get is going to be something, I don't know, you do not have permission to perform this action, or something like that. Okay, so we were trying to see if they have access. If they do have access, we set this variable to 1. If they don't have access, the variable stays at 0, and in that case we boot them off the page and send them to this feedback page that tells them they're not allowed. Okay, so now we're going to save this function, and we want a page. Let's go to our website. So this is our website. Okay, it's a restaurant web page. I want to sign in as an employee. Can't remember my password. Okay, figured it out. I'm gonna keep my job. So we logged in as an employee. It took us to this employee homepage where we have all our actions like creating orders, viewing orders. So you want every employee to have access to those kind of pages. The time clock, you want everybody to be able to clock in. However, you have these other options that you don't want everybody to be able to do. So for example, when you're managing inventory, let's say you're receiving inventory, so you got a shipment and you want to put everything in. You don't want every employee to be able to do that. You only want the shift manager and store manager to be able to do that. So that's just an example. Now, let's take another page here. So we're going to go to this right here, manage employees. So we have our manage employee page, and on here you can add a new employee, you can manage active employees, you can manage inactive employees. So let's go to manage active employees. We only want our store manager to be able to access this page, right? So we're going to put our PHP function we created at the top of this page, and it's going to check if the employee logged in is a store manager. Okay, so let's go back to our website files, and we want to put our function at the top of the manage active employees page. So we only want our store manager to be able to manage this page. So remember, we said we need to put our function after the session start, after the session is created, and after we've created our connection to the MySQL database, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to include, so notice how I'm putting it before the connection. It's okay because we're not actually calling it yet. We're just loading the file with the function. So I want to navigate to my function folder, and what do we call it? Check employee access level. Let's type a function. We have the two parameters we're passing. So the first is that connection we made. The second is the required access level. So we want only store managers to access it. Store manager is access level 3. Okay, so now this is going to call our function. So right now I'm logged in. I'm just a regular employee, so I don't have, I shouldn't have access to this page. So let's go back, and now I'm going to try to manage the active employees. So when I go into this, it should boot me out, and sure enough, I do not have permission to perform this action. Okay, so it worked as planned. Good. Now we want to see if I'm logged in as a store manager. Am I granted access? Right. So let's sign out. Goodbye. Okay. So we're gonna go into our employee portal, and this time we're signing in as George Washington. He's got store manager access, right? So now we're going to put his password in, if I can remember it. Okay, so welcome back. Now let's see, now that I'm logged in as George Washington. Now, before I actually go in, let's just look again at our employee account info table. So I have myself, I was logged in as a regular employee. I had this access code right here. Right, it starts with 13B. Go to my table with my access codes. 13B corresponds to access level 1. Okay, so George Washington, he has a different access level. It starts with BJ2. So let's go back to the other table, and sure enough, access code BJ2 corresponds to access level 3. So he's got this access code. That means he has store manager access, which is access level 3. So now we're going to go into this page, and sure enough, as George Washington, as a store manager, we are granted access. I'm going to include all the necessary code links in the description. Please let me know in the comments if there's anything you'd like me to re-explain. Have a wonderful day.